sitting here in the wake of the news about IHOP and reading this thing. I don't even remember. It doesn't even have the date or the year on it. But from when I was an intern, or not an intern, but a staff person at IHOP. And it was during the time where we did this thing called like sacred charge, and we would have to re-up our sacred trust, which was like the hours that we did in the prayer room that were separate from our service hours. So everybody was required to do at least 24 hours in the prayer room, unless there was like some special meeting called or something like that. So they related it to Anna in Luke 2, who stayed all night in the temple, and they would say that people had this sort of special evidence of grace on their life. But then they describe the evidences. So if you're a person who's insecure or trying to be special to Jesus, then all you're going to do is read this like a litmus, like a checklist, and do your best to do it. And I'm reading these out loud to myself right now because I thought I had worked through, but I'm realizing like I started realizing when I started watching the cult documentaries that like I was in a cult, like it was an actual cult, right? So now I'm reading this document and I'm like recognizing this type of language that I wouldn't have recognized before. And I have like, written all in it. But even then, when I did this, I wasn't as aware as I am now after watching all of these like religious documentaries that have come out. Let me read you this. It says, IHOP as our primary call and occupation. Evidences of grace. A, revelation of intercession. Of intercession, its value and necessity in changing history. And then they always used to have like Mike would write up notes in every leader. I did it too. I wrote notes like this. Their idea, and then they would have like a corroborating scripture. So he's got Luke 18. So then B, embracing the fasted lifestyle, Nazarite standards of life. And what that really meant back then, I don't know what people think of it as today, but back then when I was at IHOP, the Nazarite lifestyle was like, you don't drink, you abstain from like secular things, you're set apart in a different way, a more special holy way than everybody else. Will be like a Nazarite. So what are you going to do? Try to be a Nazarite. So they put Amos 2:11 here. You see priority in their schedule, right? And if I was to go in these cult documentaries, they would say, oh yeah, first thing they do, they deprive you of sleep, they make you live a kind of a stripped down lifestyle. So then they're like, okay, priority in the schedule. They will enthusiastically keep their sacred charge before God, being willing to go above and beyond requirements. So they're going, God's got this special grace on certain people who we only know if it's there if they go above and beyond the requirements. And then they've got freaking Nehemiah here. Singers kept the charge of God according to the command of David. So now I'm thinking about this in a whole nother way, that this is a sex scandal, because to go above and beyond the requirements, and then you have a random ass arbitrary verse about singers. Anyway, D, zealous participation. They will energetically seek to be engaged with God in their labors and encourage others to do the same. So what he's doing is he's giving you a biblical verse to say the Bible tells you to do what I'm telling you to do. Bro, they're talking about free labor and encourage others to do the same. So here's what's happening. Okay, I'm just peeping this. You're on the journey of me realizing that I was in a cult, because I'm like, oh my gosh, now I have the tools. I've been watching Netflix all year. Passion for IHOP's mandated message, intimacy, bride, which now is a mind F, and end times. And here's why I say that. In all of these cult documentaries, they always have sexual abuse, and they have God's raising up some sort of end time army, or there's some sort of end time apocalyptic battle where God might call us to do certain things. Made us think about violence as though it was just God's a jealous husband, and he will do whatever for the bride. So it's just making me think of, like, if Mike did and said the things that I know he did and said, like, that means that he was raising up this company of people who would be loyal to him, who would have this bridal paradigm ingrained in them. They would be willing to do anything for God, right? But who is telling them who God is? Who is describing God? Who is building their theology about God? It's Mike. And so I would have never, ever in my life thought about this in that way, because, man, Mike Bickle is a G. He fooled everybody. The man wore the same brown loafers. He drove a Toyota Camry. He had a, broke down car. He was so meek and mild and humble. He didn't want nothing to do with the prosperity gospel. Mike is so dedicated. He's always back in that office on his knees, and he fasts all the time. And, I think Mike had a dream. We're going to call a special meeting. Like, yo, no.